The following is a sponsored episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I am super excited. We have a special guest today who actually happens to be my name twin. Sometimes I'll show up in her DMs and be like, hi, twin. So, anyways, welcome, Ellen Mackenzie. We're so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. And we're also like twinning with our pink colors, we were saying as well.
Yes, lots of twinning moments. Ellen actually told me right before we hit record that, way back when she used to work in a corporate setting in her office, she would actually listen to Cubicle, the CEO. So that is also a mirrored journey that we've experienced together. And what a cool full circle moment for you to finally be on the show. Super excited to have you. And for those who are meeting you for the first time, just a quick intro to Ellen. Ellen Mackenzie is the founder of Dishing Up Digital and a multi-six-figure online business owner who helps social media managers start, grow, and scale their own freedom-based freelance businesses from anywhere in the world. After quitting her corporate job in Auckland, New Zealand to pursue her social media side hustle, Ellen spent years building and then deliberately dismantling a booked out agency. So you're gonna hear a little bit of that backstory here today. And then she ended up pivoting to a hybrid business model that's built on digital products, a flagship coaching program, a small mastermind, and brand partnerships with companies like Canva and Logitech. Big name brands that you would definitely recognize. She's grown a global community of over 1,300 students. So impressive. A YouTube channel of 50,000 plus subscribers and an email list of 11,000, all from the bottom part of our world. So actually, what time is it in New Zealand right now?
It's actually a very appropriate 9:30 a.m. Often I'm up
Okay.
at like 5 a.m. though, trying to catch like the US time zone. I'm like, wait, I'm awake, everyone.
Okay, good. I'm glad I didn't drag you out of bed. I don't know about you if that's another thing we twin on, but I am such a night owl, not a
Mm.
great morning person. So, anyways, Ellen, I look forward to our conversation today because I just think, and I was telling you this before we hit record, there are a lot of really skilled service providers who do excellent work with clients and they eventually kind of find themselves in this almost success trap where they are so good at what they do that they have a really full roster and they don't necessarily want to like stop working with clients altogether, but their dream is not to continue to scale by building an agency, or they feel, too maxed out to just continue being the sole provider of the fulfillment of the services. So I think your hybrid approach is going to be a really refreshing take for a lot of people who find themselves in that situation. And I think the best place maybe to start is with that trigger, I guess, that kind of led you to dismantling the successful agency you had built.
Yeah, the drama, the burning it all down moment.
Yes.
Yeah, I think for me, like I left my corporate job. Like I had the dream job. I often say like I worked in magazines. I
Mhm.
got into that because I watched Devil Wears Prada when I was
Yes.
13, which thankfully Devil Wears Prada 2, a lot more accurate. I felt a lot more seen. I was like, that's like what my job was. Like the constant
Yeah.
fear of losing your job or being fired and budget cuts. But on the outside, I was going to movie premieres. I was getting like sent free product. I was getting flown around the world. Like I got flown to Los Angeles to interview Will.i.am, which just that doesn't happen to a girl from New Zealand, right? It was a really cool job on the outside, but on the inside, what I craved was the ultimate freedom and flexibility of working for myself and also the creative freedom of that.
Mhm.
And I know that's where so many freelancers start. It's that freedom that they want. They're just creatives at heart and they just want to be set free. And we do that. We quit our jobs just like I did. And you start scaling and scaling. And of course, we've got income goals. We've got the big dreams we want to achieve. And you kind of get to a point where you realize you've almost recreated the environment of a 9 to 5 that you were escaping. And for me, it was just waking up and realizing, wait, where did all my freedom go? I'm spending all my day putting out fires, managing people. When was the last time I edited a reel? And I'm like, that's what I love. That's where I started, was just making content and having so much fun. And I kind of lost that along the way. And it was so difficult because, you go to family functions and everyone's like, oh, you're doing so well. I can see you on social media. You've got all these clients. Like, this is success. And I always thought, success was having 10 people on, my payroll. It was
Mhm.
having the big flashy office. It was wearing the suits. Ironically, like I changed into my good sweatpants for today's interview. Anyone watching on YouTube, I was like, actually, I'm not going to wear pajama pants today. I'm going to put on my good sweatpants. So it's like, it was so opposite to who I actually was. It was very much putting on a show for everyone else. And
Yeah.
I wasn't brave enough to go cold turkey. It's honestly been like a 2, 3 year process of me kind of slowly stepping back and figuring out what my dream business model is. And it was something that I knew in my heart that I wanted to do, but it took me
Mhm.
kind of fate interfering, a few contracts with clients ending, and then me kind of being like, what if I didn't renew that contract? Or like, ooh, what if I end this contract and they don't renew? And then I like had more time to work on my own business. Whoa, like it was like a wild kind of idea. And now that I've kind of made that slow transition, I've never been more in love with my business. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Like I wake up, and it sounds so cheesy, but like I jump out of bed, and I'm not a morning person. I do agree with you on that. But I get excited to work every day, and it's that fulfillment and freedom that I've found again. And I started posting a little bit about it last year on my social media. Again, feeling a bit intimidated, being like, oh, well, this isn't the definition of success. I don't have 12 clients on retainer. I have two. But I started posting about it, and the engagement was just through the roof. And there were so many other sort of private DMs and confessions from freelancers, from web designers, brand designers, social media managers who were like, I don't like what I've built. How do I get out?
Yeah. Again, I feel like so many people can relate to that. I myself went through that. I launched my business also as a freelancer doing social media, and that quickly scaled into, again, like similar to you, a full roster. I hired a full-time employee. I had a team of contractors I worked with regularly. So it was kind of like a boutique agency model, but same thing. I kind of just realized like, I don't really think this is actually the vision of what I've wanted to create. And I did do the drastic move where I basically let go of all of my clients overnight. But I love that you actually approached it from a more sustainable way of, just slowly shedding the clients that you had personally on your books. You mentioned that for some of that, it looked like, okay, if a contract came to its natural conclusion, you just didn't offer to renew. Is that how all of the clients eventually kind of left your plate, except for the two you still have on retainer? Or did you actually proactively reach out to any clients and say, hey, you know what? I'm actually going to terminate your contract early for these reasons?
Yeah, I definitely did like a client audit, and I do this with my students now. And I would say it's a lot more fun doing it for someone else's business rather than your own. You really have to like sit there and kind of get out your mean girl notebook and rank your clients and be like, okay, who gets 5 stars? Who gets 4 and who gets 3? And looking at things like how much were they actually paying me versus, how many hours I was working. Because some of those, as people pleasers, confession, and as service providers, sometimes those deliverables can blow out of scope.
Right.
Sometimes you find yourself with a client who turns out not to be the right fit for you. And I had my kind of breaking point was it was 2 Christmases in a row. So I had one Christmas fluke event. I had this amazing client, also ran a podcast, loved working with them, but they were a couple running the business and they ended up splitting and getting a divorce. And I felt like the child stuck in the middle. And
Yeah.
ultimately, it was November, end of November, and they just ended the contract. They were sitting on a new contract to renew for another 8 months. And they kind of kept kicking it down the road, kicking it down the road. And at the last minute, they said they weren't renewing. And that at the time was my biggest client. I think they were on almost a $3,000 retainer. And I was
Yeah.
like, cool, I have team members. I'm not going to fire them a month before Christmas because that's ethically not what I do.
Mhm.
So it was kind of rejigging everything, and then still had it in my mind, Ellen, this is like your sign from the universe. I was like, nope,
Mhm.
ignoring that sign. No, thank you. That feels scary. I'm going to hide behind my client work and just keep doing this. And at that time, it was silly because I still had built out digital products. I had my personal brand that, I could utilize for partnerships. I hadn't been brave enough to do that. And yeah, and then the following Christmas, it kind of happened again where I ended up with this client that was just a very, toxic relationship. And again, the people pleaser in me, I've never in my 7 years of freelancing had to refund a client until that point. And that was when I was like, how did I get here? Like, how? And ironically, again, it was a podcast client, but I was helping them build and launch a podcast, and I was in tears every day. And, I was giving it my all. I went in and shot with them on site for a day, and I was meant to come in and set up, and they ended up panicking, and they're like, I can't do this without you, Ellen. And I was there for a 10-hour shoot all of a
Oh
sudden.
my
And
gosh.
things like that. And then at the end, so sort of halfway through the contract, she kind of was like, oh, I don't like the way you work with me and you're bullying me, and throwing out all these terms that absolutely broke my heart as someone who like loves their clients. And that was the breaking point that I needed to be like, actually, I'm worth more than this. And I
Mm.
ended up ending that contract myself. So there was a little bit of a 50-50 split of, reviewing what clients were good for me and dissolving some kind of like longer term clients that can kind of been hanging around for a bit too long, and some clients that I was like, you know what, you guys have grown with me. I had a client that I worked with for almost 6 years who had continued to grow their business. They went from making skincare in their living room through to having their own factory with like a team of 5 and pumping through like over $1 million in sales annually. So there were clients like that kind of grew with me, and
Mhm.
others that you have to have that hard conversation. And ultimately, in the end of the day, it's you that has to make that decision.
So fascinating that two of those big kind of in your face moments happened right around Christmas time. There's that saying, Ellen, I'm going to butcher the exact wording, but it's this concept that the universe will continue to put you in the same situations until you finally learn your lesson.
Yeah.
And so I can see kind of that pattern happening for you. I'm glad the second time it really was like a wake up
Mm.
call for you and you were able to take that initiative to let go of a wrong fit client. But yeah, gosh, so fascinating. And then now you have two retainer clients, as you said. Is this by choice? And when I say by choice, what I mean is, do you limit yourself to only two at a time and you will not, open up a spot regardless if the two are full? Or is it like, you kind of have a little bit of flexibility there? It could be one, it could be three, it could be five, but it's like you have some sort of range you like to stay within to make sure you don't become overbooked again and find yourself on that same path.
Yes, absolutely. So actually, as of like last month, it's gone down to one client.
Oh,
And
exciting.
the reasoning behind that was exactly what we're talking about. It was about my capacity. It was also about the joy of the job. Like it sounds a bit like woo woo, but I often say to people, for me, it comes back to joy. Like, is this lighting me up? And it was my amazing skincare client who I'd worked with for 6 years. We just wrapped up our contract. And that was, we both cried on the call because we'd both
I'm
grown so
sure.
much. And that's
Yeah.
how close I get with my clients. But it was one of those things where I woke up suddenly one day. I'd hit that 7 years being a social media manager and doing this work. And I was like, I think it's time for me to wrap up this contract and go down to one. And part of that was the intention of, I am very involved with my clients. Like I don't just come in as a social media strategist. I kind of come in now as like that fractional CMO, and I'm very much like ingrained in every aspect of your marketing. And for me, I love just having the one or two clients because I can
Mhm.
give them my energy. And I'm just obsessed with them. I want to give them my all. And I actually don't like splitting my brain across like 7 different brands. Like I want you to have all of my genius. So at the moment, I'm just working with one startup, which is really, really exciting. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, it comes back to like what lights you up. And
Mhm.
that's my guide at the end of the day. I even had a family member recently who kind of made this, little snide comment being like, oh, but I bet your parents won't be as proud as you because, you didn't end
What?
up building the agency. Yeah. Like those kind of comments. I know there's so many people listening that will have
Yeah.
that from the odd, I'm talking like extended family.
Yes.
And like now I'm just at the point where I'm like and maybe it's like turning 30 as well, where I'm like I don't really care what other people think. I care about how I feel when I wake up each day.
That's the metric, of course, that matters because, as someone wiser than us probably has
Mhm.
passed down, you're the only one who has to live in your life every day. And so don't do it for other people. And with that other client kind of naturally coming to an end after many, many great years of partnership, just for other people listening, I'd be curious to know your philosophy on, like, I know right now your capacity, you're feeling great at just, that one
Mhm.
client, but if your capacity were to open again, are you going to actively seek a second client? Or is it more of like, if someone comes your way, that's a great fit, you'll consider it? And then if, let's say, all of your client contracts happen to naturally come to an end at some point, is there a desire to replace that? Or would you actually then at that point be like, I'm not going to do any done for you clients anymore? I'm just curious your take on that because I know you also teach and mentor other social media managers. And so I don't know if you kind of like having at least one client so that you're kind of staying in the know of what that process is like in real time as a practitioner, or if you
Mm.
can see yourself eventually completely shutting down this arm of your business.
I think that's really the beauty of my hybrid business model that I've built. I often describe it as levers. Like I can be like, oh, we've had a client contract end or something's wrapped up. Let's pull the lever for coaching programs or template bundles or brand partnerships. I have found in a way the increase in brand partnerships has felt almost like bringing on clients and doing a lot of UGC work for those brands as well has kind of replaced part of that stream. And I'm the kind of person that never says never.
Yeah.
And for me, the clients that come to me, it's a very natural, organic way. Often either through like referrals, someone in my network, or someone who's like been following me on social media, and I don't necessarily promote those services. It's kind of like my backdoor kind of offer. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
And the rest of my marketing channels are really dedicated to promoting my courses and digital products. So for me, it's not about choosing one or the other. I think that's the beauty of it. And what I also tell my students a lot, those that are making that transition from maybe going down the path of an agency to building more of a hybrid, is I'm in this incredibly privileged position where I can be fussy on the clients that I take. Incredible opportunities come along and I might just be like, no, thank you. Like that's a huge amount of money, but actually, no, thank you. And it's because, again, I have those different levers that I can pull on and be like, I think I'll wait for the next opportunity. So I don't know, there could be a point in my future where maybe I do go, 6 months without a client. For me, I know that I have 7 years of client knowledge. I've worked with hundreds of clients in different niches all around the world. So for me, I don't really see it in the sense of, I've got to keep tabs on the industry. I've got to stay up to know for my coaching, because I back my experience, I back my knowledge. One of my coaching programs, the one that I've had for the longest, the Dishing Up Digital School, we train new social media managers. And one of the things I love about it is someone will come to me and they'll be like, oh my God, I've had this crazy client scenario and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oh, so in 2023, I went through that exact thing. So I just have this like wealth of knowledge and I just love it. And every scenario that I've been through with a client, I'm like, I also know that I've gone through it so that I can teach and mentor other people.
The well runs deep. Absolutely. And I completely understand what you're saying. And I really do love that levers analogy and that visual that you kind of painted, because I can absolutely see how that creates such a fluid environment in which you can really choose in any given season what lights you up, like you said, what brings you that joy. Let's talk a little bit more about the actual structure of the hybrid business. So we've obviously been alluding to it throughout our conversation so far, but what are the actual individual streams of revenue, and what percentage of revenue does each stream kind of comprise of, or are you allocating your energy or time to, however you want to approach that? But I think that pie breakdown would be super helpful. And then I guess in your mind, is there anything specific that makes a business a hybrid business, like how you define that, versus just being a business with multiple revenue streams? Like, is there a distinction for that in your head?
Yeah, it's so funny because I started using the term hybrid business model as almost a way to disguise like I'm just a multi-passionate creative. And I was like, hybrid business model sounds more professional, Ellen. Let's embrace that.
Rebrand. Yeah.
Yeah, rebrand it. I'm a marketing girl at heart. But no, I think I always used to talk about multiple revenue streams. My students know that my favorite joke is Ellen's favorite word, multiple revenue streams. And even within my social media management services, I had like consulting retainers, I had UGC retainers, then I had full management. So it's like I had very intentional offer structures in everything that I do. And you'll see it when I talk about my digital products as well. But for me, that was when I think of multi-revenue streams, I think of past Ellen, who was trying to do it all and like spread herself too thin and people please her way to the top. And for me, the hybrid business model is like allowed me, because I think giving something a name is so powerful, and it's allowed me to be that much more intentional and be like, yes, this is the business model. And when those opportunities come in, I ask myself, does this align with the hybrid business model and the kind of dream and the structure that I've created? In terms of that pie chart, I did bring that with me because I was like, I know Ellen, she's going to ask me about all the numbers. This is the Cubicle to CEO podcast. Which,
thank you for being prepared.
I will say it's definitely a weakness of mine. If someone adds up my percentages and you're like, Ellen, that's 99 or that's 103, I apologize.
We can be forgiving of the numbers.
Yeah.
I think even just the general ranges is so helpful. But yes,
100%.
give us your pie chart.
Yeah, so I've got 5 like core streams of kind of income that it's made up of. The first like lowest one is only like 0.3, that which is affiliate revenue. That is from last calendar year, so it's definitely grown this calendar year because I kind of did this review at the end of last year and was like, "Oof, you need to tighten that up." And then the next revenue stream is YouTube AdSense, which I love. I've had a YouTube channel for 14 years, I want to say now, maybe almost. My
Amazing.
sister and I started that in school. Ironically, it was part of me building my portfolio to get a job in magazines and ultimately circle back to that. So that made up about 2% or just under 2% of revenue. That has also increased this year, which will be exciting to see how the numbers come out. And then my client work was just under 12%. So again, for me, that was still like a decent chunk of change. Like it's ironically a similar amount to what my old corporate salary was, with only the 1 to 2 clients at a time. And yeah, for me, it's when you start getting into sponsorships and digital products that they also have that kind of like uncapped potential. You know, when you're doing that one-to-many coaching, when you're looking at sponsorship deals, it really just keeps going up and up. And that's why they also make up the bigger percentages. So spoiler alert, the next one was sponsorships and brand partnerships, which made up 23% last year. And already we've surpassed, like, what are we in June? And we've surpassed last year's partnership revenue, which is very exciting.
So exciting. I love that.
Yes. All thanks to my wonderful coach who runs this amazing podcast. Taught me everything I know.
You're so sweet. No, really, you obviously have that content creator vision. Like you understand content deeply, not just from an individual side, but like you said, your 7+ years of working with so many different types of businesses. So I have no surprise that you've been so successful in that realm, but super, super happy for you. Continue.
Yeah. And I think just to touch on that as well, it's what I see so often with web designers, brand designers, all these classically like so talented creatives who are giving it all to their clients. And again, we're not saying you can't do that, but it's like, what if you just had a little bit of that energy to give all to your business? Like these are the kind of things that start to happen that, you know, sponsorship revenue is just an awesome place to be in, and it's still so creatively rewarding, but it's all going into like my cup and my business, and it's all compounding, which is so cool. And then the last revenue, obviously digital products, which is over 60%, which is very cool. That's the highest that it has been. That's kind of grown year on year. And even under that 60%, around 70% came from the Dishing Up Digital School, which I kind of said is my signature mentorship program. 14% came from my mastermind, which was actually only something that I introduced at the end of last year as well. So that was quite cool to see that it brought in a decent chunk. Then I have a couple of like smaller digital products that make up like the last kind of chunk of percentages. I have like a template bundle. There were a couple of like one-off paid workshops and sort of mini programs like that. I have an annual social media manager summit, and we had like a all access pass for that. So it kind of just built up with a few little percentages of different products from there.
That's amazing. 60% is huge. I mean, full-blown education company, really, at this point with a very strong media arm. When you're, I don't know if you call them students or clients, the people in your mastermind, but regardless, the people you work with and mentor in your mastermind, when they come in, do you typically find that they only have maybe 1 or 2 of those levers and revenue streams? And then throughout working with you, are you helping them get started in some of those other arenas? Like if they've never had a course, or if they've never done a sponsorship or brand partnership, are you helping them build out those levers alongside of you? Or how does that process work for those who are interested in exploring hybrid models?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do. I feel like a bit of a mad scientist. I come into these businesses and we start dissecting and pulling apart. And you're right, most of the time they really just have the one client work. And maybe they've gotten a little bit fancy at some point and hosted like a one-off workshop. And I kind of come in, I'm like, cool, well, what was the funnel of that workshop? And they're like, nothing. It was just for fun. And I'm like, cool, we love doing things for fun, but we can also be strategic and have fun.
Yeah.
I've been working with one of my amazing students, Camilla, at the moment, came in with this incredible agency. She had 12 clients on retainer. She had a team of like, I think it was 5 team members. She's based in Puerto Rico, and she had this incredible business, but she came to me and she was like, help. like how, like I love it, but I'm so tired, girl. And I'm like, I get it. So it was looking at, obviously we look at systems and team and how we can lighten the load of her agency work initially. For a lot of my students, it's not drastically burning it down. A lot of them still like to have a good amount on retainer. We did, that being said, do the client audit, and there were some, ending of contracts and some natural ends there. But it was also looking at with her, okay, like what's the more like one-to-many service? Like how can you have more impact? And it's usually like a process of going through and doing like a test offer and doing like a one-off live event, teaching something live, getting that feedback, then refining it into something a little bit more passive. Or on the flip side, one of my other students has started like her Substack. She's monetizing her paid newsletter, and she's basically building an audience to eventually launch a podcast. And again, she's also got an amazing little agency, boutique agency off the side with great team members who are helping run that. And yeah, I think the beautiful thing is that everyone's a little bit different, because it's about, at the end of the day, what you love and what lights you up. And sometimes that takes a little bit of work to kind of pull out from people, because they've kept it buried for so long and they're hiding behind their client work.
Absolutely. But I think what is so great about your ability to help these people is that you do have a wide breadth of knowledge in multiple different types of revenue streams outside of client work. And so that depending on their interests and their strengths, you're really able to help them customize their own plan and then guide them on how to actually execute on that plan. And even going back to brand partnerships, it has been amazing. I know we met in person in 2024 when you came to Oregon for my original brand partnerships retreat. And at the time you were already doing deals, but even to see your focus and intention in growing that lever in your business and to see what a large chunk, like basically a quarter of your business it's now become, I think is also going to be really inspiring to a lot of our listeners, because I think a lot of people associate an opportunity like that to only be available to people who consider themselves like influencers or full-time content creators. And I think you're showing that no, actually you can be a service provider with a deep expertise or skill set and still be able to make a significant chunk of revenue from a diversified lever or revenue stream like that. So I just think that's so amazing and needs to like be overstated that this possibility exists for people.
And that's what it is at the end of the day. It's like opening your eyes to the possibilities. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think micro influencers, that is where it's at in 2026, 2027. When you look at the numbers of my business, yes, I don't have this huge following. And sometimes I have to fight brands a little bit, really kind of be like, this is my worth, this is what I charge. And I turn down way more than what I end up saying yes to because of that. But I can come through with the numbers, and I've done campaigns with brands where they've told me that I have the highest conversion rate out of all the leads I send them. Like I can have like a 60% conversion rate from a free trial to a paid plan, which is pretty like impressive in the world of kind of like affiliate marketing and things like that. And I've seen that as well when I partner for like my social media manager summit and I partner with our affiliates. It's often the people with the smallest audiences who will come through and sell the most tickets. And I think brands are slowly waking up to that power of like a niche community. And if you can partner with a creative, not an influencer, a creative who has that connection to your brand and your business, your product, your service, your software, whatever it might be, and they have an audience match, it can be so, so powerful.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. I just want to like double stamp, double tap all of that, because I think, and you know this, but just for our listeners, it really, like what Ellen said, it really isn't about how many people are in your audience. Like just rearrange the letters. It's who. It's the same three letters, right? But it's like, it's the who, it's the audience match. And I think, again, you're just such a great testament to that. I want to wrap up our conversation, Ellen, by helping people who are excited about this opportunity to get out of just doing client work and really build a business that suits their joy, their strengths, their ideal schedule. How can they get started if they're deep in the trenches of client work right now? Let's say a social media manager or any creative is listening to this right now and they're feeling just so strapped with, what they've already got on their plate. Where should they even begin to move more in the direction of a hybrid business?
I'm so glad you asked this, because I see exhausted service providers do this all the time where they're like, I want to make more passive revenue. I want to get into more this hybrid business model. So what do? They put together a PDF and they sell it for $27. They're like, cool, I'm going to make so much money. And I think there's this narrative on social media that, the lower ticket digital products are so easy to sell. And as someone who has a lower ticket digital product in their office suite that I've really put some love and time into this year, it is going to move up the ranks instead of my revenue percentage. So it's not something to disregard,
Right.
but this is a very strategic small digital product that I've spent a lot of time like crafting and positioning and testing with my audience. Whereas I see people just slap together a digital product without any sort of audience research, without listening to what their customers actually want from them. And then I see it flop and they are like, oh, this is such a scam, digital products, this doesn't work for me, rah, 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 rah. And often when I work with my students, they can get a little bit frustrated at first because I make them slow down so much. It's like, let's do an audience survey. Let's test this with a live workshop, this concept. And maybe let's test 2 different live workshops and see which one gets the most signups or the best sort of show up rate. Like, let's see what lands best with your audience. And, there are cases where we get it right on the first time and we're like, cool, offer is validated. Let's like pursue this as, a digital product, whether it's a downloadable, whether it's a membership, whether it's a course, whatever format. It's different for everyone, but we've validated the idea. And I think that is the step that a lot of people take wrong. And it's so easy to do when you're so exhausted with the work that you're doing. And people may not want to hear it, but I do think there is an element of taking a step back to take a step forward. Like, you have to find space in your business, whether that means hiring someone, whether that means decreasing your client load or reducing the scope of your contracts and deliverables. There has to be some give because it's going to take time. It's going to take a little bit of setup. I have actually quite happily taken revenue dips at times because I've wanted to build out, certain new programs or digital products or rebuild things or focus on funnels. I kind of call them my like back end seasons where I'm just focusing on the building. But trust me when I say it's worth it. And my only regret is I like didn't make those decisions earlier, but time has to come from somewhere.
I think that's such great wisdom. And you're right. It is much harder to accept than to just theoretically like understand why that works the way it does. I guess the last thought on that piece then, because you did have to go through some of those dips in revenue as you transitioned, how were you able to handle that? Because especially for a lot of solo service providers, I think a big fear is, okay, well, yes, theoretically I understand I could take a dip in revenue, but maybe they're the breadwinner in their family. Maybe this work is what pays their bills, and they don't have enough reserves in the business saved up to kind of accommodate for that drastic fluctuation. Do you have any advice for what helped you during those dips and transitions?
I really got serious about finding out what my number was because yes, we have realities. We have mortgages to pay for, some of us have kids, family, life, bills, everything's expensive these days. That's a very true reality. But often I find we have this habit as entrepreneurs, especially I feel like my fellow millennials that sort of grew up through that economic crash of the 2008, 2009, like in middle class families, we were all affected by that. And I think we all kind of carry this sense of like hoard money, keep the money. It's like a lot of us have that attitude. So getting really up close and personal with your numbers, give yourself that audit. Like, do you actually need to pay for all of these things? Do you have any like blowout in your expenses? Or do you actually have the reserves in your business that you will be fine? And it's just a fear thing. Like, it's just your mindset kind of holding you back. I find that's quite common. Otherwise, like I've worked with mums who, are the breadwinner and we just kind of come up with an action plan. It's like, okay, we can't drastically offload all these clients. So let's look at the ones that we can increase the retainer price of and bring in a contractor. So there are definitely other ways to do it. You don't have to burn everything down and take it like as a huge loss. It's just about finding what's going to work best for you. And for that particular student, it's been amazing. She found some great team members and she's kind of like, she's a little bit like lost where she's like, whoa, like they don't need me. Like, oh my God, they went and did a content shoot without me. That hasn't happened in 2 years. So
Right.
it is really cool to see. And there's definitely options for each individual. And it's reminding yourself, again, this message of you're building a business for you. Your path is going to look different. Don't just try copy what someone said in a viral Instagram reel. Like it's about building something that works for you.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that context matters. Context matters. Context matters. I could say that like a million times. I feel like that needs to be a shirt or a mantra, but Ellen, yes, I think that the kind of duality that you shared, like it could either be, okay, let's cut back on what you're doing with the client work, or the opposite, you're actually increasing the scope, but bringing on support so it's not taking out more of your time. I think that's brilliant. I think that's really encouraging for a lot of people, understanding it doesn't have to look like a reduction in revenue in order to test this hybrid business model out. So I would love for you to share with our listeners where they can continue to connect with you, but also if they are looking for support and guidance to implement a hybrid business model, what's the best way for them to work with you? What solutions do you have to offer them?
Absolutely. Instagram is my home place. So definitely slide into my DMs. I'd love to hear from you guys. I have my own podcast, Dishing Up Digital, as well, which I love to have a good yap on. And often I say on that podcast, I'm like, please send me a DM and I'll voice message you back. And then it comes with a warning, because I will probably send you a 4-minute voice note and want to know your entire life story. But if you're here for a bit of a yap, come say hello. And I do actually have an additional like revenue stream, which I kind of forgot to mention. I'm a girl of many passions, as I mentioned, but I do actually have a physical content studio and hire space in Auckland, New Zealand, where I live, Mackenzie Studios. So that is another place you can find me hanging out. If you do live in New Zealand, slide into my DMs. We can have a coffee, come see my studio. And that's not included usually in my revenue breakdowns, because it is a separate registered company and I don't actually draw a salary out of that. All of the money we make from that business gets reinvested. It's been a very different business model and something that I don't know if I'll have long term in my business. We had this vision of building it out into like a nationwide franchise. It's a hard business to have in New Zealand with the way we work with commercial leases. But again, if you're a creative, if you're a freelancer, these are the kind of opportunities that can open up for you when you start thinking about building something for yourself and not just for your clients. And it's been a very cool three years, I think, we've been running that business, and I love it.
So cool. We love a multi-hyphenate.
And if you are wanting to work closer with me on building your hybrid business model, I do have a mastermind where we focus on exactly this. We have a really amazing, intimate group of 5 other amazing women who are building their dream businesses that they love, their hybrid business models. And we do that through group calls and private calls.
Incredible. And is there a name for the mastermind if they were to go on your website and
Yes.
search? Okay.
Yes, so it is called the LFG Mastermind, which is me having like a little bit of cheek. It actually stands for Live for Gold, which is meant to be like finding your purpose, finding your like, your version of gold, whether it's making so much money, whether it's
Yeah.
chasing sunsets, being your, digital nomad, whether it's raising your family, whatever your version of gold is.
Yeah.
But also like I love something that's a little bit cheeky. I'm like, it has to be the LFG Mastermind because we're going places.
Well, and of course, as a millennial, let's effing go is probably like literally the theme mantra of our generation.
Right?
Like I see that everywhere. So love it. That's so great. Thank you so much again for just sharing all of your insights with us. All of Ellen's links, the website, mastermind links, Instagram will be below in the show notes. Make sure, like she said, to also add Dishing Up Digital to your podcast queue. If you love Cubicle to CEO, I know you'll really enjoy her show as well. She has so many great marketing insights that she shares there. So anyways, Ellen, thank you for being here and thank you all for tuning in. We will catch you in the next episode.